Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is Darren Doctorman.
And this is Ashley Miller.
And we are the Inglorious Treksperts.
Go behind the scenes of all your favorite Star Trek series, from the original series to today, with the stars, writers, producers, and more, every Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And for more, subscribe at TREKSPERTSPlus.com.
It's the logical thing to do.
Keep on trekking. Ingloriously, of course. Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
This is Darren Doctorman, and we are the Inglorious Treksperts.
I thought it was a classic femme fatale. So much fun.
Like that Shakespearean lace in your acting.
I said, Gene, what do you want from this character?
I want you to just take the character and make it your own.
I had a good time on the film.
On day one, the movie was already $15 million over budget.
We started this movie without an ending. That's like painting yourself into a corner.
I don't think we've ever had a Star Trek captain on our show.
Being, as you said, number one on the call sheet, it is a producer's position if you're going to take it seriously. I was so glad they didn't cast me as Lorca.
You famously wrote that script in 12 days.
On one level, I wrote the script, and on another level, the story was written by everybody and his brother.
Well, I was going to say, what was your response when you were directing and Terry, sort of called you aside and said, hey, I want you to get back in front of the camera again?
I said, he sort of chummed the water a little bit. Are you ready to play Riker? What I thought he was saying was, you better go to the gym and lose some weight. Lines. Are you going to trim your beard? Don't cut your hair. My interest was totally piqued. It's not hyperbole to say it's the best Riker material I've ever had.
New episodes available every Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts. Or subscribe today at TREKSPERTSPlus.com.
But keep on trekking, ingloriously, of course. Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is Darren Doctorman.
And this is Ashley Miller.
And we are the
Inglorious Treksperts.
Treksperts. What
Treksperts.
the hell was that?
I want to change the beginning. I just find this ridiculous.
Well, I'd like
it's
to
not.
change
It shouldn't be that hard.
to us doing it together and correctly.
But I don't think that's going to
A
happen.
one, a two, a 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's like amateur hour here.
But we've been doing it forever. That's the funny thing.
No, we did it for a while, fine, and I don't know what's
consistently bad. That's where our charm lies.
Yeah, such as it is. So welcome to Just Our Luckinbill, up close and personal with Laurence Luckinbill. Larry, of course, is the author of the new memoir, Effective Memories, How Chance and the Theater Saved My Life. Now, we've gotten to know Larry Luckinbill, who played Sybok in Star Trek V, among many other roles, pretty well over these last couple of years, and we're very lucky because we've gotten to know him and his wonderful family, and it was really, I think, a thrill for us to be able to extend the invitation for him to not only be part of our Star Trek V cast and crew reunion, but on Sunday at Star Trek Las Vegas to give him an hour to talk about his life, his career, and read excerpts from his remarkable new book, Effective Memories. So the only problem that we didn't plan on was the Doomsday Machine. Bill Shatner was on stage in the main theater across from the Trekspert stage. And so it was like the one time where fans of Larry's had a real Sophie's choice, and they chose Bill, and they chose not to share our pain, and went over to the auditorium over with Shatner and did not get to see Larry. It was one of our less well attended, although there were a fair amount of people.
Still a pretty good crowd.
Yeah. And that's the joy of being able to share these with you on the podcast, because so many more people will now have the opportunity to hear Larry talk about his remarkable life. And this was a really special panel, wasn't it?
I
Oh
love
my
it.
God.
It was,
It's maybe my I can think of so many things in the last year that I would say are among my favorite experiences as a fan, and as a part of this show. And I would say that this is easily in my top 5, top 3. There's there's a thing that is absolutely positively number 1, that this doesn't quite hit, but this was, God, this was such an amazing experience, and he's just a delightful, insanely great human being.
yeah. And afterwards, he really had a great time spending it with us and the audience, and that's what's important, because that's why we brought him out, because we wanted
It's important,
people
Marion.
to enjoy him.
That's why we're aboard him.
You know,
Oh,
it's
wait, well,
interesting because people say, you know, they say, look, you guys, you know, you're fairly successful careers in Hollywood. You have a lot going on. Why do you do what you do with this podcast? Clearly, it's not because you're making a bunch of money or anything on the podcast.
That much
And
is-
that much is certain, yeah. But the reason that we do it is for days like that Sunday to give Larry Luckinbill the spotlight,
Yeah.
and to give back to the people that have given us so much in our life, whether it be doing the live commentary with Bill Shatner on Star Trek V and rehabilitating the reputation of Star Trek V, or, you know, giving Larry Luckinbill the chance to read from his amazing book. I mean, this is just, to me, the joy of doing this show is, you know, all these, I mean, whether it was when you had George Takei read the deleted scene from Star Trek II, and he got to finally perform, you know, the scene.
We're trying to
approaching
give
the
a little
Enterprise.
back to the people who have given us joy over all these years.
That's right.
Great joy and gratitude.
That's
I mean, with Larry, it goes beyond just him reading from the book. As an experience, we got to just bask in his humanity for an hour, and it was really quite something. I actually was deeply affected by that panel, although I spent half of it, like, not even on stage dealing with things related to his appearance, but there was just such a sense of family and care that I can't say that I've experienced anything like that at all, like as a fan.
And
With
and
him.
joy. I mean, he shares a lot more than just his Star Trek V experience. But his Star Trek V experience is so great in his mind. He loved it, and he still loves it, and that's kind of magical.
Yeah. You know, and Ashley alluded to something which he didn't get into detail, but I think since it affects his appearance on stage, we should mention that as he was coming on stage, he cut his hand backstage on a metal railing, and really cut open his hand pretty badly. And so we were trying to get medical care to him at the same time that he was going on stage, but he was very much of the old school, the show must go on. So he was still getting medical care and attention.
He was being bandaged up
while he was on stage,
Yeah.
which you'll hear some of that during the panel, which may explain some of the weird stuff that's going on. But yeah, you mentioned the celebration of family, and I have to say, and I've said this before, you know, showbiz families can often be very screwed up, and you know, Larry, in his book, you'll see how screwed up his you know, formative years were, but his family, his wife, the lovely Lucy Arnaz, and his kids are just so terrific, and no airs about them, and just they care for him so much, and we're so happy for him to have this opportunity to share his life and career with people that really have so much adulation for him and wanted to know more about him. And this was his chance to share it. It was interesting because, you know, when we had interviewed him about Star Trek V, a year or two ago.
Mhm.
You know, it was tough getting him on the show, and then he agreed to do it, and then he had the best time, and then he was desperate to come back and talk more with us, and we wanted to have him back, but we're like trying to figure out the right time.
Right.
And then I had reached out to him. No, he had reached out to me to tell me that he had a book coming out, you know, and you never know with the actors, you know, how self-indulgent, how much there really is of substance there.
Right.
So, and so I got it on Amazon, and read it, and it was terrific. I mean, it was sensational. In fact, I even texted him though, because he was about to record the audio version, and gave him a few corrections on some stuff about Star Trek V and Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade.
You're
that
wrong.
He did. That he quite, and he was very appreciative. You know, it was like, you know, just I said, well, this isn't quite right, and this is, you know, just some fact checking, and so, you know, this is about the time that we were given the chance to curate this 4 days of programming in Star Trek Las Vegas. So, I mean, we immediately knew that we wanted to do something with Larry, not only for Star Trek V for the 35th anniversary, but also this book. And I think it was so gratifying to see the immense lines for his signings. He signed twice, Saturday and Sunday, and they weaved all the way through the dealer's room. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was like the Shatner line.
Yeah,
it was, and it was all hands on deck. We had to send extra help to help work the table because there were so many people, and they all wanted to talk to him and have a conversation with him. And of course, you know, yeah, because he's so gregarious and so charming and so interesting. So
and he's interested in you. That's the thing. It's one thing for a person to be able to just kind of put on the charm and put on the game face and all that. We all know actors can just do that. Some of them will do it in person, some of them won't. But that's a completely different thing from somebody who looks at you and wants to listen.
Right.
And that's how Larry is. That's what makes him different.
And what was funny too was the next week in San Jose, we were able to tell Shatner, we said, you know, Bill, you really screwed over Larry. He's like, what? I thought he had a good time on the movie. No, he said he had a great time. He loves the movie. He loves you. But your panel was the same time as his. And, you know, you stole his crowd. He goes, oh, my God. I'm not surprised.
I did, didn't I?
You know, but it was great. And we're so glad that we can share it with people. I got to tell you, before we do that, it's time for an Isaac Altman marathon update.
Oh, Christ.
So this is interesting. So yesterday, I didn't realize it at the time. It was the 5th anniversary of the passing of the late great Aaron Eisenberg.
Right.
You know, and Aaron, just a wonderful guy. I knew him pretty well. You know, we spent a lot of time, as I said, at this sci-fi Star Trek convention in Paris. Me and Rob Burnett were there with him, and Armin and Rod Roddenberry and Max Grodenchik. And it was just a remarkable experience. I don't think he had been to France. We had been to France, and we had the best time in Paris. This is a while ago. But we became fast friends and always stay in touch. Every time I see him, we would yell at each other, Sacre Bleu, because that was what we used to say to each other in Paris. It was a great time. So anyway, there's a reason for me telling this story. So ironically, the episode we were up to in Isaac's Marathon was Only a Paper Moon. Which features an extraordinary performance by Aaron Eisenberg, who's so good in it, who like, you didn't know. I mean, it's like, man, I mean, he was good in the show, but like, he's extraordinary in this because he's dealing with the repercussions of losing his leg, spoiler alert. And it's a, you know, great episode also for Jimmy Darren as well. And it's so funny. So we're watching, and Aaron Nog is watching TV in Vic's suite in Vegas, and he's watching Shane, and Isaac turns to me. He says, you know, I love Shane, but The Searchers is better. Literally 3 seconds after he says that to me, Nog looks over to Vic Fontaine and says, you know, Shane is good, but The Searchers is better. And we were dying. Oh my God. It was dying. And he did say that I think we're in the 5th season of Voyager, the fourth season of Voyager. He says, it's gotten better. We watched Bride of Chaotica, which is one of my favorite Voyagers. And there've been a couple episodes that we have enjoyed, but it's still not great. It's, it's occasionally there's water in the desert, we come to, but Deep Space Nine has just been, has been sensational. It's great to watch it again. He can't get enough of it, and we're having a great time. But it was so weird because when we watched Only a Paper Moon, I hadn't realized it was only later that night that I realized it was the 5th anniversary of his passing. Yeah. It was such a weird synchronicity. But we miss Aaron. He was a wonderful guy, and it's a real loss to everyone. And I love bringing him up. I don't know if I would have named a starship after Nog, but I do have, I can't believe it's been 5 years since he passed away.
They did name a delicious holiday drink after him.
That's true.
And it's wit like that you can expect during our conversation with Larry Luckinbill, who shares just remarkable stories from growing up and throughout his career. We say this all the time, but it's true. This panel could have been another 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, easily. If we didn't have to put up with our own silly schedule that we made.
Yeah, exactly. But, they say nobody wants, a lot of people, they don't want to sit more than 50 minutes for a panel.
Well, spoiler alert, we do this for us, not them.
Yeah, that's true. Shh, don't tell anyone. That got to be our secret.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I don't know if you guys have seen it. We went this weekend to see Superman, the wonderful documentary about Christopher and Dana Reeve. It is a tearjerker. It is amazing. Loved it, and so it'll be coming soon to Max. It may already be on Max by the time this episode drops. I strongly recommend it for not just for Superman fans, but for anybody who has a heart, because it really is such a moving and powerful documentary. I loved it.
Yeah, I was thinking of going, but I honestly, I didn't want to experience that in public.
Yeah, I can see
cry
why.
in front of people.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say it was a pretty packed house. A lot of disabled people were there, to see it, and it was, it was really, really extraordinary. And he just, and it shows him warts and all, and just a fantastic experience. We all loved it, and it's really well done. And there's some, great. And the way they tell the story also, that it doesn't just become sort of this linear, and then I got cast as Superman. And I don't know if this is...
It's just fun. It's the way you tell a story,
I do love... I don't know if the story is apocryphal or not, but they do tell the story. His dad was very demanding and very, tough on him. So he was... Christopher Reeve's father. So apparently he couldn't believe when he told his dad he got cast as Superman. His father was so excited and just really thrilled for him. And it was only later he found out that he wasn't cast in Nietzsche's Man and Superman, which is what he thought, that he was cast as a comic book superhero, and looked down
genius
and was disgusted by that.
Sickens me.
So really interesting stuff. But speaking of really interesting stuff, we're about to share with you a really fantastic up close and personal look at Laurence Luckinbill as he shares with us his life story and some insights from Effective Memories, How Chance and the Theater Saved My Life. And we'll be back after these brief commercial messages with a few closing thoughts. Stay tuned. We have something very special for you. It's called Hello, Larry. And once again, we're going to have just a wonderful actor, talent, person joining us on stage. And what's a thrill is he's just published his new memoir. It's called Effective Memories, How Chance and Theater Saved My Life. And I've read it cover to cover. It's a remarkable book. We'll be talking about it. If we're lucky, he may even do a little bit of a reading from it. Immediately following this panel, Larry's going to join us at the Inglorious Treksperts table, where he'll be selling books and signing. So I hope you'll be able to meet up with him. And I'm sure after hearing this panel, you won't want to miss the opportunity to purchase his book. It's just terrific. And like I said, it's intensely raw and honest, and to steal a phrase from Star Trek, fascinating.
And some amazing stories, and hopefully we'll hear some of those here today.
Yeah, so without any further ado, we want to bring out Laurence Luckinbill to discuss his new book and his amazing career. Thank you, Ben. And thank you to the entire Luckinbill family for making it possible for Larry to join us this weekend. We've been very lucky to have his presence here at the show.
Excellent.
So,
hello there.
Larry, I have to say, I've read a lot of memoirs, biographies, actors, performing artists, historical figures, and a lot of times they print the legend the way they want to be thought of. They tell stories that make them look good. You wrote a memoir that is incredibly candid. You talk about the difficulties, to say the least, of your upbringing. Yeah. You talk about various struggles that you've had through your life. You talk about infidelities. I mean, it is a very candid and honest book. And
unlike most actors' books.
Unlike most actors' books, yes. And usually it's the ones that are written posthumously, where you find out what struggles they had, because when they're alive, they would talk about, oh, I was wonderful and I was a genius and everything came easily to me.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what sort of the impetus for you in writing this book, and was it difficult to be so honest about your life?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm going to probably read a little bit of something from the front of the book, which explains that I like to tell stories to my children. I have 5 children, and they loved the stories, but my daughter, who is the youngest one, was the only one who kept asking, and what happens next, Daddy? And she asked it every night. So it was one of those things, you say goodnight to your daughter, and she says, and I want to know what happens next in the story, Daddy. So I had to sit around on her bed very uncomfortably and make up another piece of story. And so when it came time to think about my life, I was thinking a lot about my life, because I had married Lucy, and we had 3 kids, and I already had 2. And, things were rugged at times. And my daughter said, Daddy, we know everything about Mommy's parents and her family. We don't know anything about yours. So could you tell us, please? And then it was what happens next. And oh, yes, I'm being doctored up here because I came in contact with the stair rail, and it attacked me. I wasn't looking for it. It just jumped out at me in the dark and attacked me in 3 places. So now I'm bleeding all over the...
But Kathy is taking away your pain, which is hopefully appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, first of all, I want to say something about the Treksperts, about Mark and Ashley and Darren, and all the rest of the great company that they've assembled to bring the aspects of Star Trek to you with this loving kindness and loving aplomb that greets any guests like me. And I'm hoping you agree with this. They are absolutely wonderful people.
It's very kind of you to say, and we appreciate and we revere you, and that's why we are so happy to have you. People talk, obviously we've all read, and many, I'm sure, in the audience have experienced the perniciousness of racism, and we know the historical stories, but you tell a story from your days growing up in Arkansas as a young boy, which really, I feel, is so powerful. And I wonder if you could share that story with us when you were working at the grocery store and there was a young African-American boy that you befriended, and what ended up happening when you brought him home?
Okay. I was a slacker all the time, but I got a job in a grocery store where I slacked even more because I hated it. And I didn't like to work, actually. I like to dream and think and lie on my back and look up at the sun. So I'm working in this store for this 6'8" black man. He was my boss. Now that's rare, and in Arkansas, really rare to have a black person as your boss. He was the head of the vegetable department, and this man was a superb guy in terms of his expertise with all of the groceries that were in that area and the fresh produce. And if it was a little stain on one of the lettuce, get rid of that, Luxembourg. That was my name, Luxembourg. And he said he would, and I would say, yes, sir, pretending it was like the army, you know. And one day his nephew came in, a kid, 14, like me, and we hit it off, and we started laughing about stuff and even laughing at his uncle and all of this behind his back. And so we were both comic book enthusiasts and entrepreneurs, if you will. So I invited him to come to my house, and he was very hesitant. But I overcame that hesitancy. I said, we'll walk there together, and we'll go inside. He said, well, I don't want to go inside. I said, well, okay, we'll sit on the porch. He said, no, not on the porch. I said, well, how about the steps? He said, okay. So we walked through this white enclave. Most of the town I lived in was in Arkansas. It was white. And we got to my house, and I went inside and brought out the comic books, and we were having a great time looking at them. But there was always this hesitancy in the boy, and I didn't understand it. But I looked, I saw the curtains move in one of the houses as I passed by. That was my auntie who looked, she was always checking up on me. Well, it appeared that she had called my mother, so my mother arrived from her job, and she was walking up and I turned around and saw my mother, and I said, what is she doing here? It's the middle of the day. And she beckoned to me, and I went to her, and she said, you have to take this boy out of here right now. He's in danger. Do you understand? And I got it. I said, oh. Now, this was the first intimation I had of the kind of racism that I was living in and didn't acknowledge because I didn't know enough, but also probably if I had, I would have followed the routine that all white people went into when they knew black people or around black people, and they would, basically shrug it off or say, it's somebody else's problem. Well, anyway, the boy came to me, and I said, I'm going to walk you home. He said, you don't have to. I said, I am walking you home. So we walked together down to the Arkansas River, where the train station was, and that was the lower part of town, and there was a brothel down there, and there was all kinds of bars and stuff. And on the other side of the tracks was where the black people lived. And I had not seen this, and I didn't know about it, but they lived in shacks and makeshift things. It was a ghetto. And I said goodbye to this boy there, and I never saw him again. And at that point, I became aware of racism. I was 14, and I've never gone back on that. I've only taken that into my heart for all of my life. And at this point, in this radical struggle we're having right now in our country about racism, it's very old stuff. It's coming from way back before the Civil War, of course, and the Lost Generation and all that BS that we told ourselves in the old Confederacy that I lived in. And at this point, this country must face this finally. It's been at this point many times and not faced it. We've shunted it off to the side. Anyway, that's the story, and it's the first intimation of politics that I had in my life as well. Like, you better take an interest in the civic things that are going on, because they are going to affect everybody.
No, I found
Long answer.
No, I found that to be an incredibly powerful story you tell in the book, and obviously on stage as well. A lot of us have to deal with the high expectations of parents, and in your case, it was no different. They had expectations you would be a doctor, the first of the Luckinbill clan to go to college, and it didn't turn out that way, did it?
No, to say the least. Yeah, my mother and two nuns that I had in high school banded together to get my slacker pose. They didn't believe my slacker pose. First of all, I was a very intelligent guy, and I was able to write, and the principal, who had forgiven me many horrible things I did in the school, I was always in the front row, if you know what I mean, and every class. Anyway, they got together and said, we're getting this kid out of high school in 3 years, and so he can go to the junior college, which has just opened up in Fort Smith, and it's $100 a year, and I don't know if you can afford that, Mrs. Luckinbill, but that's what it'll cost, and it's very low cost, believe us. And so I went to summer school every year, and that's where I got my second lesson in the reality of life. I was assigned by the English teacher. Well, all of the nuns were from Ireland. They were all immigrants, and they were the smartest people and the most sophisticated people in town. Anyway, she assigned me, okay, you read this poem by, I don't forget who, Emily Dickinson or Walt Whitman or somebody, and you recite it or read it at the next class. Well, I hadn't read it. I didn't read it. And of course, Slip and Slide Luckinbill, I did a parody of it, which made my slacker friends very happy, and they laughed like hell. And I saw Sister Matthew coming down the aisle at me, not toward me, but at me. And she hit me with a right cross. It knocked me right out of my seat, and I landed on the floor, and I started laughing. And I looked up at her, and I saw no anger whatsoever, just a twinkle in her eye. And she said to me, don't laugh at the words of poets. Poets are important. Words are important. If you don't know how to communicate, you don't amount to much. And she turned around and walked away. Yeah, that hit me so hard, because words and books had always been important to me. Since I was 5 years old, I was trying to read. And to me, words that followed sentences, that were tracks into the wilderness, and they led to rooms, which were the paragraphs, and the paragraphs led to palaces, which were stories. And so I took all of that to heart. So I go to junior college with the intention of becoming a doctor. You know, Dr. Luckinbill will meet you now. You can come in, and that was my mother's dream. And so I took physics and algebra and biology, et cetera, and I flunked every one of them. And that was only junior college. But then I went to the University of Arkansas, which was a great school in Fayetteville, and I signed up for science again, and I just assumed that I would make it. And it's really a string of funny stories, because it's silly what happened. I failed everything so spectacularly. Organic chemistry twice, D's and D minuses, and when I got my grades at the very end of the year, and my parents by then had done like Archies and moved to California where my sister was, I thought there was that D- there for organic, and F for biology, F for physics, and et cetera, et cetera. So there was no salvation for me. And I was so scared because I let my mother down. So I ran across the campus to the professor who had flunked me in chemistry. He had been a nice man, and I liked him. And I got to his house, and oh, it was so nice over there with the big houses and the doors you could see through because they were glass, and there was they had the old style bell ringer. It didn't go ding dong, nice ding dong. It went rah rah like locusts, and I went rah rah, and he was playing the piano, and I saw him listening to get up, and his bald head was shiny in the sun, and he came to the door. Yes, Luckinbill? I said, and here was the first intimation I had that maybe I had something in my brain that shouldn't be there, because I thought, oh, what would Oliver Twist do now? And I was snotting and slavering, and so I wiped my hand on my sleeve, and then I thought, this is too much. And what would you do? I said, well, sir, you flunked me, and my mother's going to kill me. Please help me. He said, come in. And he sat me down. And he said, you don't know this, but I have eyes in the back of my head. And you have done a great parody of me all summer, all winter. And in fact, it's so good that I thought I could learn from this. And maybe I should change some of the ways I teach. And he said, I'll tell you something you're not going to like. You do not belong in the sciences. You belong in the performing arts. Oh, what? No. What's that? Performing arts. I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it. You know why? Because I grew up in the Ozarks where nobody ever heard of the performing arts or any other kind of arts. They did know about violins and banjos, but that was a terrible blow to me. So I had to go to California and explain this to my mother. And my mother insisted on my taking an aptitude test at the University of California at Berkeley. So we were riding up Telegraph Hill in the bus. It was an hour's ride, and my mother was doing her rosary. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, don't worry. And she looked at me and she said, Larry, you have just got to have a chance. And she started to cry. Now, with a 18-year-old, when your mother cries, you want to get out of town, man. But I understood, because I had grown up with an alcoholic father, and he was a problem boy. She had 4 children, and he was the fifth, actually. And and neither my father nor my mother had had a chance in life. They were both blue-collar workers. We were quite poor when I was growing up. She had a change purse that she kept after paying all the bills, and this was for emergencies. But there was never, in that change purse, I never saw a 50-cent piece, only quarters and dimes and nickels and pennies. So that's where we were in life. And I knew what she meant by a chance. She said, you are the savior of this family. You're the only one that's gone to college. You have to carry us. And I had failed. So I went to the aptitude test, and the guy that gave it the aptitude test said, you cannot fail an aptitude test. Here's what it is, blah, blah, blah. And so I had 3 hours of, language and math and shapes. And so we went back a week later, and we walked into the same place, and my mother had great high expectations of this aptitude test. Was going to tell me what I should be in life. And the guy, when he looked at me, had a frown on his face. And my mother looked at the frown, and of course, that meant I was accused, guilty, and ready for condemnation, hanging probably. And so he said, Mr. Luckinbill, did you take this test seriously? I said, yes, sir. We all say sir in the South, you know. And he said, well, you have actually failed an aptitude test. I said, is that possible? I thought you said you couldn't. He didn't even answer me. He just went on, and he said, first of all, the math. He said, you blocked out with your little pencil all these things. Well, I said, but you told me you can't miss with this because just try, just give it a try. And he said, but I didn't think that you would give ridiculous answers, and these are ridiculous. And he said, and then in the spatial relationships, the geometric part, you just ignored the answers. I mean the instructions, and instead of trying to put together A, B, C, and D of box shapes, you drew a birdhouse, 3 stories, and lots of birds flying around in the air, and even an airplane. I'll say this for you: you draw pretty well. They're kind of a comic book drawer, and then on the word part, the literature part, you were superb. I would give you 110% if I could, and I brightened up with that. But he said, "All right, that's the way it is now, and if you'd like to come back in a week and talk about this, fine." And I looked at my mother. I knew what she was thinking. He's a dead man, and I'm a dead woman. And we got back in the bus, and again she was white-knuckling her rosary, and she cried again. But then she kept saying her rosary. My mother was a woman of faith, and in spite of all the crap in our family, she was a woman of hope, and I was the hope. And so she looked at me, and she just looked serenely at me, and she smiled at me, and I thought, she's really going crazy, because I haven't changed, and but she had such faith in me that eventually she did accept the fact that I was doomed. I had to be an actor. So that's the story. It's
before that, though, you had an inspired decision. If I can't be a doctor, I'll be a dentist.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yes. Well, of course, the first thing you do when you flunk the main stuff is, I can be a dentist. Surely I can get into that, because that's easy. So I ran across the campus to a Quonset where they were doing testing for a dentistry school. And I knew there was a good one in St. Louis where my brother-in-law had gone to school. So the guy said, "Oh, boy, you're really in luck. You really want to be a dentist?" "Yes." And I said, "Oh, yes, sir. Dentistry has been my life. I've dreamed of this." And he said, "Really? All right. Well, listen, we've got a couple of tests here. I'll give you this one. It's carving a molar out of a piece of chalk. It's very easy. And look in this big box here. And I'm going to go get a sandwich, and I'll come back, and you'll have carved your molar, and we'll send it off and see what happens."
No one has ever failed it.
Huh?
No one has ever failed.
No one has ever failed this. So I opened the box. There's an X-Acto knife, which was really nice, and a cube of chalk. And I thought, how did Michelangelo do it? David. Well, he found David inside the marble. So I'm going to find a molar inside this cube. So I began very lightly on the top, and I took the X-Acto, and I did one stroke, and the cube exploded. Dust everywhere, chalk dust got in my nose. And apparently it got in his too, because in the next room he started sneezing. And he came in and he said, "What did you do?" I said, "I didn't do anything, sir. I began my molar, and this is what happened." He said, "Oh, that's too bad. It's probably too old, this test. Let me get you another one." He said, "I can only do this once." I said, "Okay." So I took it in the other room, and this time I really made sure, oh man, I want to get this damn thing. I was pretty good with my hands too. I could draw, I could do all that stuff. Clay. And I started in a different place on the cube. I thought maybe I don't start on the top. I went down the side. Explosion. Dust everywhere. The guy comes in again and he says, "What did you do?" I said, "Nothing, sir. I just tried." And he said, "Well, I'm so sorry. I can't give it to you again a third time. But how about coming back next spring?" He said, "Anybody who wants to be a dentist as badly as you do, we're going to give another chance to." So I escaped dentistry that way, and I escaped probably killing a lot of dental patients. But anyway, from that point on, yes, and this young man who gave the test said, "Actually, you know, given your artistic ability, you belong in the performing arts." Not in the creative side, mind you, probably in the administrative side, which was already crazy.
Definitely not sculpture. That's just right.
Definitely, yeah. So I signed up for speech and drama at the University of Arkansas, and that was the beginning of this long journey of this thing here. Which, when my daughter got me into this, I thought, okay, I have to tell my family story, and I have to tell it honestly, because what is the point of an autobiography that lies about yourself? And there were a lot of things about me at that point that I didn't like, especially. And there were a lot of things about my family I didn't like, and I knew I had to tell the truth. So I started to tell the truth, and as I did, the truth came back and bit me in the ass so many times. It was really a 10-year exodus through deserts and mountains and dry holes and all kinds of stuff, until I finally got to the point where I became, because of meeting this wonderful woman that I'm married to, Lucionez, I came to a whole new idea of life and love and respect for each other, and finally, respect for myself.
You had several instances of instructors saying that you belonged in the performing arts.
Yes.
You were on the proper path for you.
Tuesday. Yeah, it took a long time. I was a skinny, tall boy with a nerd face, and I wore thick glasses, and I was the sissy. And I would know that because I read a lot of books, and the books told me that. Anyway, I had to be an actor, and once you realize that, which is the only way an actor is any bullshit, is if they, but I will get there. And bullshit is aplenty in the showbiz thing, and you have to learn, as I did, on the stage. I'm not good because I'm not good looking, and my father doubled that up by saying, you know, you got about as much talent. That burnt my ass, and I said, I'll show you, pal. And I did, but it took a long, long time, mostly for messing up. Really, but I didn't know that. You know, you don't know these things. You just go through life thinking, oh, you're a pretty big guy. I spent 11 years in New York just moving my boxes from one couch to another. In Fine With Me, I would do jobs, anything to get to act. And it took 11 years. And the accident, Carl Jung said, it is a gift that divine. You, asking you a definition, tell me, please. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Come on, tell me. That's a great definition, Larry.
But I mean, just one of the little you go down that I just found delightful was when you went to Katharine Hepburn to try and convince her to do new projects, and there was so much just to do it, and then of course it has kind of a twist at the end. But that must have been remarkable.
I was
on your part,
and it came at the time when I was actually getting a divorce from my first wife, all my fault, by the way, and of the farm, which had a son pitted against his mother, and I saw myself as the son is exactly the right quality. Who's best for demanding and also vulnerable, and so I mailed her the script, and a wonderful old come and visit me, row house, and I got there and I went up the steps. It was quite cold that day, and I am fearless. I said, I'm here about I went up and there was a fire burning in the grate, and I saw that it was low, so I went immediately to the fire and started to get down. And she expertly took the logs exactly the way I would do it, because I knew how to build a fire, and crisscrossed them above the... That's exactly the way I was listing in the fire. She said, well, that's good, then you know something. So we started with that. And she said, all right, what's this about? His son is a weak story. His mother is so dominating. And I said, yes, but Miss Hepburn, what happens in the story? The son come back to the farm in Pennsylvania because she can't handle it anymore. This is the first intimation he's ever had that her trying to mow the ground. Any weakness the federal government required of farmers at that time. And her dog had dragged her back to the house. She knew she needed help. She New York, and he was newly married and a stepson, and he really thought hard about it, but he went. And so that was the story. Power. These two, and she finally said to me after a lot of back and forth about this, where I was fearless, finally she said, all right, I'll write you a letter and telling you that I will do it if you can get a production going. This is a little bit like Spencer Tracy. And she became so different and so dreamy, and so from the fire, and Spence knew what he wanted. And I was put into that category with Spence, just in that respect. And the movie, and it was fantastic, and Katharine Hepburn won the Academy Award. No. What happened was Hollywood said, oh, she's a has-been. Network, she's boxing. How short-sighted people are. You know? You get a couple of years on you, and you get a little reputation. Blacklisted. I was blacklisted twice because I am an anti-authoritarian person, and I'll fight back with anybody.
Larry, thank you so much for sharing just a small part of your life with us today.
And we're back. That was Laurence Luckinbill.
Another Superman.
Indeed, indeed. What's your favorite Larry Luckinbill movie?
Star Trek V.
I think I'll have to pick Star Trek V.
Not Cocktail?
No.
You know, I don't even remember him being in Cocktail. I only saw it once.
Yeah, he was the father.
Of course, Elizabeth Shue is the
father.
standout from Cocktail for me.
He was Elizabeth Shue's father, the disapproving father,
who
Mr. did not want Tom Cruise and his family.
No,
I wouldn't either.
Me neither. He's too short for you, darling.
He's great in Bill Friedkin's the boys in the band,
right?
Which obviously put him on the map. You know what? I said this during the panel. I just can't believe how honest Larry was.
Yeah.
He comes across very, he talks about his marriage falling apart, when he talks about, some of the things that he went through as a kid.
He's real.
He's very real. And he leaves it all on the field, as they say. I don't know if I could ever be that honest about my life the way he was.
Certainly not.
I do know one.
Surely not.
Not to score.
Surely not.
What, Darren?
I do know one thing. It's not to score touchdowns.
Yeah, he's such an interesting guy, and we're so glad again to have had the chance to share this with you. And if you haven't picked up the book yet, you can find it on Amazon. I believe it's available on digital as well as on in soft cover. And there's now an audio book that he's reading. He reads the book himself.
And remember, it's spelled LAURENCE LUCKINBILL.
And
because we like you, MOUSE.
That's right. I want to thank one of our readers. Our readers.
Our readers.
One of our
Hell,
listeners.
let's just go to the transcript. I want to hear you guys.
I want to thank one of
our
our listeners who posted on social Larry in a scene from The Rookies with who was it with? It was with somebody really interesting.
That you can't remember right now.
But I can't remember.
It was Peter Mayhew. It was a scene from The Wookiees.
No, it was Larry Luckinbill. Was it with Shatner? No, couldn't have been. No, in The Rookies. It was, who was it with? But it wasn't them. It was somebody really interesting that was like, oh, maybe it was David Warner. I don't remember. Anyway,
Gabe Kaplan.
It was not Gabe Kaplan. I don't think Lars Luckinbill was ever on Battle of the Network Stars, but Gabe Kaplan sure was. Yeah, but anyway, definitely check, if you haven't picked it up, definitely check out Larry's remarkable book. You won't be disappointed. You know, of all the stories we talked about on stage, there are hundreds more that we didn't talk about, and it really is a life well lived, and we're grateful to Larry for sharing with us
and his family.
And his family, very much.
We're lovely people.
Big thanks to Kate and to Lucy and to everyone who was just so wonderful. He even got his kids at the booth helping sign and coordinate, because it was so crazy that they sat down and helped him. It was terrific. So
yeah, and that's not a given, by the way,
right.
By any stretch of the imagination. Either the family helping, or just the incredibly congenial attitude that they all had, and just it was so collaborative and so great. I can't say enough about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're grateful to you for joining us for another episode of Inglorious Treksperts. Of course, you can hear all new episodes of Inglorious Treksperts 1 week early. If you're a Treksperts Plus subscriber on Spotify, you can listen a week early or watch the video versions a week early on Spotify. Or of course, if you want, you can just catch up a week later, where the episodes premiere wherever you listen to podcasts, or on YouTube if you want to watch the video versions. And we're so grateful to everybody who supported the podcast. Of course, you'll also get Deck 78 episodes a month early before they go wide. So that's a treat as well. And so keep on supporting the podcast. That's how we can guarantee continue to bring you great Inglorious Treksperts content. And we're getting closer to the holiday special, and we'll be revealing exactly what those holiday specials will be this year. We know a lot of you are anxious to know. I'm
anxious to know.
We'll be parting the curtain on that soon. And feel free to share your thoughts about this or any other episode on your favorite social channel, or join us on our new Discord channel. And you can find that link in the show notes, or go to Inglorious Treksperts on Discord, and
share your pain.
And share your thoughts about the podcast by giving us a review. Positive reviews help drive traffic to the podcast, new listeners.
Negative
reviews do it all
do
ourselves.
not.
Yeah, exactly. So stick with the positive reviews. That's probably the way to go. If you want to be negative, well, keep it to yourself, because it doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't help anybody. Can't we all just get along? So anyway, we'll be back. We'll be back next Thursday with an all new episode. And we hope you'll be back as well. So on behalf of Ashley Edward Miller, Darren R. Doctorman, myself, Mark A. ALTMAN, keep on trekking, ingloriously, of course. Engage.